Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Far out. I was interviewed by some students for a student magazine. These were pretty little kids, and they interviewed me when I was working at Pixar. And the first line in the interview was Mr. Nelson, who says "far out" for cool. So they identified that I was from a different generation. My language for cool was far out. So anyway, you may find some difficulty in tracking me because I'm old. But we share the fact that we love making great stories.
Okay, and the PowerPoint is up.
Okay, great. And it's a keynote just for fun. And we're sharing it through a new collaboration feature in the latest version of Keynote called Keynote Live. My name is Randy Nelson, and I today work at Apple University for Apple Computer. It's not called Apple Computer anymore, Apple Incorporated. And prior to this, I worked for 12 years as the Dean of Pixar University. Pixar Animation Studios had a school inside it that I started, and I was the person that ran it. I also had a career in show business in theater. I was a member of a group called the Flying Karamazov Brothers, and we were professional jugglers, and we made movies, and we were on Broadway and in the great theaters of the world. It's now been more than 20 years since I last juggled a chainsaw.
Wow.
Justin, how do you want to do this? Should I just go through this little presentation and we can have a chat, or do you folks have questions they want to ask right now?
Well, I think if we start off with your presentation, and then as you're speaking, if any ideas pop up, then we could have questions toward the end.
Great. Okay, so what makes a great story? The very first thing that a great story has, the reason to tell a story, is there's got to be a great problem. What's a great problem in a story? A great problem is a problem that's easy to understand, but really hard to solve. Does everybody know the movie Finding Nemo by Pixar, folks?
Yeah. That movie was my childhood.
So what's the problem in that movie? It's pretty easy to understand. What went wrong?
He didn't listen.
Got lost. He died.
Nemo got taken by the divers. Exactly. So he can understand the problem. Oh, my son is gone. Even Dory, who is not the smartest fish in the ocean, Dory can remember. She can't remember his name. Oh, Bingo, your son Bingo is gone. No, Bingo, Nemo. So easy to understand, but hard to solve. So what do you have to do? Think about Marlin, Nemo's dad. He's like the most scaredy fish in the ocean, right? The last thing he wants to do is be out in the open water, and now to solve the problem he's got, easy to understand, my son is gone. It's hard to solve. I've got to go out there, and as easy as it is to understand, as hard as it is to solve, if the audience doesn't get it, then it's not going to be a very good story. I mean, the audience that does get it will love it. But the broader, the more people that can share the story, people everywhere know about having children and about the worries that parents have about them getting lost. You don't have to be a parent to understand that, right? None of you are parents, right?
No.
That's kind of a joke. I hope that was understood in the way it was meant. But even though none of you are parents, you totally get the idea that having your kid get taken away would make you crazy, and you'd do anything. You'd go against your very best instincts about how to keep yourself safe to try and get your child safe. Hero's journey is all about how grave the problem is. And the hero isn't interested in the problem, but cares so much about how the problem affects both the hero and others that he just can't turn away. Make sense so far? Yeah, okay. So you've got to have a great problem. There's a great problem sitting underneath your story. The next thing a great story has, it's got really clear structure. Really clear structure means that it's easy for the audience to figure out what's going on. But you also have some power in terms of what you don't tell them, but what the story is actually about. So there's structure in a story at a surface level and at a hidden level. The surface part, everybody knows this. A story is something where something happens. So there's the story part, the action of the story. When somebody says, tell me a story, you go, once upon a time, and this happened, and then it's over. That's the story part. The world is where the story happens. It's the setting. But it's more dynamic than that. It's deeper than that. And that's one of the things we've seen with the great animated films that have come along in the last 20 years, is that they bring us to a world we've never been to, like the world of the ocean. Even though fish can talk and we know they can't, we believe it because the world is so consistent. And then a story is full of characters. Those are all the things that you actually make that the people who hear your story or see your story get to see directly. But underneath that, every story has a problem. The world has a set of rules that make it consistent, and the characters are driven by things they want. And you get to play with the hidden stuff that drives the surface stuff. And the audience has to figure out what's going on underneath the surface in order to understand what your story is and in order to learn what it is that you have to share. So a story is a way of teaching without anybody having to go to school. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Not that there's anything wrong with going to school, right? I mean, it's what we all hope we're doing something with our lives that matters, and this is about giving you kind of the tool belt that you need. And some tools you won't use that much. There's going to be stuff in school that you go, yeah, that wasn't so much me, or that wasn't critical to me right now. And down the line, you're going to find you need it. I had no idea I had the need for as much mathematics as I did in my life until I got into filmmaking with computers. And it was like, boy, I'm really glad I did that trig stuff that I didn't exactly understand, because my God, it's all triangles. I'm completely surrounded by triangles. So yeah, school without going to school to keep on being a lifelong learner, that's what your story is about. And you'll learn from it and others will learn from it. So a great story has a really good problem, and a great story has structure that people can understand. How are we doing so far? Let me stop for a second and say, how is this working for you? Is this all right?
Great. Yep, so great right now. This worked perfectly.
Okay. Okay, cool. Next thing, what does a great story have to be? It's got to be believable. And believable is not realistic. Ed Catmull is the person that I worked for at Pixar. And Ed is the boss of Pixar. He's the president. Ed Catmull and John Lasseter. John Lasseter is the chief creative officer, and Ed Catmull is the president. And they're both president and chief creative officer of both Pixar and Disney. So Ed once was asked by a reporter, so you guys are using computers and you're making more and more realistic films, and pretty soon you're going to get to films that are perfectly realistic. And Ed said, oh, no, that's not our job. Perfectly realistic films already exist. They're called home movies, and nobody wants to watch them, but you can't argue they're not perfectly realistic. Well, our job is to make perfectly believable movies. How do you make something believable? It's got to be consistent. Whatever you're doing, whatever rules you set up for that story you're telling, stick with those rules. Even if they're crazy rules, like fish can talk. Notice that in Finding Nemo, fish can talk, but it doesn't mean they can fly. It doesn't mean they've got superpowers or laser beams coming out of their eyes. It's just that they can talk. And they never do anything more than talk. And sort of halfway through, they don't suddenly show that they can do something you didn't know. So believability in your film, making it make sense to what your characters understand about that world, makes it make sense to the audience. As long as you set up some rules at the beginning and you don't break those rules going through, people go, yeah, I totally believe that. How do you make those details come true? You've got to be specific about the details of that world. So when fish talk in Nemo, bubbles don't come out of their mouths. I mean, it's sort of tempting, right? Because you can really show that. But there's no air in their lungs. They don't even have lungs. So there's no place for that air to come out of. So that detail wouldn't help. It wouldn't make things connected. And it would make the audience ask why in a way that would keep them from thinking about your story. So think of believability as a kind of way of keeping people focused on what you're doing. They go, oh, yeah, that's possible. Oh, I know fish don't talk. But if they did talk, it would be just like this. They'd be worried about mowing the lawn. They'd be worried about getting eaten up. They'd be wondering where the kids are, making sure everybody's happy. they'd be flirting with their wife or their husband. Yeah, okay, I believe that stuff. Okay, so a great story has a really good problem, a problem you want to solve, a problem maybe you can't even solve, but you want people to understand. So they know how the world looks from behind your eyeballs. That great story's got to be structured in such a way that people can stay with it, follow it. And that great story's got to be believable. Why is it your story and not just a story? Because we want to hear from you. Oh my gosh, there are so many people in the world, and yet you have the most unique voice and the most amazing sense of style. And you've got ideas that demonstrate how you think and see the world that are different from anybody else. Those two things we have to have. It's got to be all about just you and your fingerprints. So the first one, expressing a strong point of view, that's about how you think, what your content is, what your big ideas are. And then your unique voice, your sense of style, that's about the form that your content takes. I don't know if you ever talked about that in class, but it's a worthwhile thing to think about sometimes. The difference between the ideas you have and how you present those ideas. In a story, you've got to get both of those nailed. A really strong point of view that's about you. Not what's popular, not what you've heard in a cliche, not what you think a story should be like, but your darn way of seeing the world and your unique way of describing that. You've probably got some slang that you and your friends understand. You've probably got some way of talking that your parents sometimes have to go, I'm sorry, what do you mean by that? Or maybe they're trying to be hip and go, oh yeah, I'm with you. But whatever it is, use those things that are unique about you. That's what we want in your story, is we want to get behind your eyeballs and see the world the way you see it for a minute. Because we're going to understand you better, and we're going to understand ourselves better. And that's what a story is about. It's a way of learning without going to school. Nothing wrong with school. This is the hardest thing for us as filmmakers, is we want to tell stories, but in filmmaking we don't get to. We have to show stories. So your first job is to always be thinking about, what do I get my character to do that would matter to them and might try and solve the problem of my story? Character's got to do something. So what are they going to do? And you can't just say, kind of narrate it like, gee, got up and was going to go on his first date and felt really nervous. No, you got to show nervous. What are some of the ways you can show nervous? If you had a character in your film who is going on his first date or her first date, how can you show nervous? Not tell nervous, but show it. What are some ideas?
What do you think, guys? How can you show nervousness?
Facial expressions.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let's raise hands. Jacob.
His teeth are chattering.
Teeth are chattering?
Biting your nails.
Biting
Nice.
Oh,
What, biting lips?
You can tell in your eyes.
What about the eyes?
Laughing.
Get bigger and it gets blacker in your eyes.
Okay, so bigger eyes.
Hands are shaking.
Hands are shaking.
Sweat.
Sweating.
You might have the heartbeat start beating faster and faster in the background.
Okay, so having like an audio heartbeat beating faster. Stuttering. Okay.
Yeah, it's great. Those are great ideas, especially for people doing an animated film. If you're actually working with actors, there's some things actors just can't do. Like, it's really hard to tell an actor to cry, but some actors can cry. But it's really hard to get an actor to sweat. And that's such a great idea. So you're always, and those were wonderful ideas. Every one of them, an audience would have to go through a mental calculus. They'd have to go through some work. And the audience came to your story in order to work. That's why they don't want to be given stuff. They want to feel smart. So take a risk. Something has to happen in your story. So make the thing that happens be big. Give the audience an experience and trust them to figure it out. And reward them. Let them feel smart and let them learn at the same time. And they'll keep coming back to your story because it was like, oh, I figured that out. I knew that was going to happen. I knew Dory was going to run into some fish and he's going to get in trouble in terms of Marlin. I knew Marlin was going to try and ditch Dory. I totally knew that. right? That's when you feel smart as an audience because the story lets you figure out what's going on and feel like you're jumping ahead. Of course, they're not. You gave them that opportunity. This is also really hard. To make a great story, you have to keep going back over and over the same territory. Anybody any good at telling a joke? Yeah.
Look in the mirror.
Can you tell the joke exactly? Is it a joke you can tell out loud right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that circus fire? It was intense.
I love it. That's great. So do you tell it the same way every time? Or did it take you a while to get to where you could just get that punchline out right as it came right after the circus fire line? I bet it took you a while to get to where you had that great rhythm and you really could punch that punchline just the way you did. Because that was funny. So you got to keep it fresh. That telling of that joke was really fresh. But I know that's not the first time you told it. Stories are like that. You have to keep telling and retelling them and figure out each time. Treat it a little like an experiment. And in an experiment, I don't know if you've got a good science background, but in an experiment, you just change only one thing. Run the experiment again and then see what the difference is. How do you know whether you're doing right? Well, it's really hard because part of it, you want to listen, you want to pay attention to the audience. You want to go, oh, that was great because they laughed really hard. Or that was great because everybody was groaning. But in the end, it's your story. And what you want is not laughs from somebody, but you want to satisfy that inner voice that you have that says, I nailed it. I got that out there. I made that make sense. So it's got to be fresh, just as fresh as that joke was. And that was great. What was your name? I'm sorry?
His name was Kyron.
Kyron. Kyron was totally fresh, but we all know he's told that joke before, and that's why he nailed it, because it was both fresh for us, but not new to him. That would make you crazy, because the work's got to stay fresh for you, for it to be fresh for them. This is almost the end of the little presentation. Most of all, a great story. How do you know it's a great story? Yeah, it's got a great problem. It's got good structure, so people can stay with it. It's believable, so people will lean into it and sort of immerse in the experience. You make it experiential. It's a show don't tell. You make it personal, so we get to know about you, and we're really interested in you once we figure out a little bit about why we should be. But most of all, a great story is a story that gets retold. A story that gets told again. Like a great joke, you just can't be here. You go, I got to tell that joke. So great stories often have a detail or a moment in them that almost stands for the entire story. This is an old movie, but you've probably seen it. The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yes.
All right. So what are some details or moments from The Wizard of Oz that when you say Wizard of Oz just come into your mind, like a line or a picture from the movie?
Skeleton, or not the skeleton, scarecrow, and the
Okay, Scarecrow. Wait, guys. Shh. One at a time. Maggie. No Place Like Home. Cowardly Lion.
Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah.
Yellow Brick Road.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
We're not in Kansas anymore, but we are in Kansas.
Great line. We're not in Kansas, but people say that all the time, don't they? Right? I mean, when adults are confused or saying, wow, this is different, adults will say to each other, hey, we're not in Kansas anymore. Talk about a memorable story that's transferred to somebody being not where they belong. How does she get home?
She killed Ruby Shoes.
Flicking the ruby shoes, few people said.
Yeah, the ruby flippers. Like you say, ruby flippers, and does anybody not know what movie you're talking about? So keep looking in your story. It may not come out really early. You may never find it. But keep looking in your story for a detail or a moment that sort of captures the whole story. When I think about Finding Nemo, I think about that moment when Nemo swims out to the boat, and Nemo's friends don't know how to say boat in fish talk. So like Nemo's little buddy says, who's going to touch a butt? Right? And And Nemo's dad, Marlin, is way over on the safe part of the water going, don't you dare, you got a young man, if you touch that, you're gonna be in big trouble, right? Who hasn't heard that part? Right? And he catches it, he looks at Marlin and he gets his fierce look in his eye, and he reaches up and goes, bam! You know, that's it. Right? Look for those moments. If you make your story easy to tell, simple, well-structured, really clear problem, it's got you all over, it's totally your fingerprint. Make it easy to tell, and your story will be retold. White screen. What questions do you have for me? Bother to look at you that way again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't touch that butt. Ruby red shoes, yeah. They frozen. Funny, scarecrow. I'm on a meat food diet because I eat all the food I eat. I'm on the seafood diet because I eat all the food I can see. That's great. I haven't seen the meat food diet joke before. Why did somebody cry in a film? Why did somebody cry at a film? Because you found something universal. You found something that happened in everybody's life. But you made it personal from your own point of view. So it isn't just like, well, I think one of the best cries I've ever seen in a movie is in Up, in the first act, where we see the life that married couple, Carl and his wife, have together, and she passes away. They can't have children, and then she gets sick, and then he's alone. There's something about that we all know can happen to people, could happen to us. And yet, it's only happening to this funny little block-headed cartoon character. Not real, but because we believe. So the believability of your story, plus how personal you make it, how much it's your genuine, your way of seeing the world. The very first version of Monsters Incorporated, you know Monsters Incorporated, yeah? Yeah. So Pete Docter, the man who made the movie Up, he also made Monsters. And in the first version of Monsters was about an old man, and there were monsters in his house. And one by one, he overcame his middle-aged fears, and the monsters went away. And Disney said, yeah, go make that movie. Well, that's not the movie we made, is it? It changed a lot. Ultimately, it didn't feel right to look at an old man and be looking at his fears. We thought a little girl probably has many more fears, or a little boy, a child, would have more fears. That would be more interesting. But Pete loved the idea of the old man. And so he kept that idea around, and we went to make Up. That same old man became the old man for Up, that was originally the old man in the middle of the Monsters Incorporated story. So you make a story where people cry or they really feel something because you make it real from your point of view. You make it real to you, that personal quality. You make it believable in your film, the details and consistency, and you make it shared about things that others really care about. When you get those three things working, detailed and believable, personal and shared, you're going to create strong emotions. How do you get people on board to a common vision when you have disagreeing viewpoints and personalities? Well, Steve Jobs, Apple, Pixar are all companies where our job is to go and argue every day. We debate. We fight. We fight fair. We don't make fun of other people's ideas. We don't make other people feel bad. But we fight to see what the best idea is. And we demonstrate the best idea by making it real for others. So the best way to win an argument in film is to make a little version of your film, a little version of your scene, a storyboard, or be able to pitch it in such a way that it comes to life for people. And when somebody sees that, when you see that, oh, that is a better way of doing it, great people will always change their mind when presented with a better idea that they've had a chance to experience. So keep loving your ideas. Keep passionately engaged with the way those ideas come to life, and then see how hard you can listen with the willingness to change your mind when somebody else is talking. Don't just listen to think, oh, they're done now, I can talk. Don't listen to think, I'm going to try and understand what you mean. But instead, the highest form of listening is to listen with the willingness to be changed. If you show others that that's the way you listen, you'll help others learn to listen that same way. And when everyone's listening that same way and arguing about something they feel passionately about, you end up getting the right thing. It's noisy, but it works. And at the heart of Apple is every day a full-fledged face-to-face argument among people who really respect each other about how to do the best thing for our customers. Maybe one more, huh?
Sounds good.
Justin, what do you think?
Sounds good.
Let's see. These are such great questions. Sound effects. One of the really interesting questions that John Lasseter had to deal with, and you may not know this movie, but it's a little short film. It was really the first film Pixar made. You know, at the beginning of a Pixar movie, that little lamp that jumps into the credits, that lamp is named Luxo. Did everybody know that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Luxo. So John was working on Pixar's first movie on Luxo Jr. And the sound guy is the sound guy who did all of the sounds for the Star Wars movie. Really amazing person. And this person came back and says, I've got the voice now for the little lamp. And John says, well, the little lamp doesn't talk. And the sound guy said, oh yeah, I know, but it's just the squeaks that are the way he's expressing himself. And John said, I never thought about that. The sound effects for the movies are collected from all kinds of sources. And what John Lasseter, the director, said was, I never knew it until that moment. I have to leave room for other collaborators to do their work. I have to leave holes in my movie so that somebody who's working with me on the sound has a place to put their creative ideas. If I fill the entire movie up with my ideas, there's no room to invite a collaboration. And great films are made by collaborative effort, by getting somebody interested in your film who's maybe a little better at sound and maybe you're a little better at picture. And when you can get those two things together, somebody who knows your vision and gets your idea, who listens to what the film does and brings their own contribution. So to make great sound effects or to make anything great in a movie where more than one person is working on it, think about leaving space for them and giving them something important to do. Don't just say, here, the movie is done, now you can add some sound on top of everything I've done. Leave holes for others to contribute creative work, and you'll get better collaboration when you give them meaningful roles to contribute in. Justin, how'd we do?
Hey, I think we did great, and I think that last part, that's amazing advice to, be able to talk to the kids about, as they're putting their movies together.
Great. A real pleasure. These are wonderful questions. I sure enjoyed myself.
Hey, we enjoyed having you too, right, guys?
Yes.
So thank you very much. I mean, it's just a huge honor to be able to talk with you more. It was great being able to meet with you at the ADE Institute. It's even better talking with you here now, and thank you for sharing with us all your insight.
Thank you so much for reaching out and letting me share with you. It's a real, true honor. Thank you.
Well,
Make great movies, guys. I'll be seeing you in the theaters one day.
all right. Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Bye.